Hey everyone, for my regulars, I understand that this is far from the gaming content that I usually produce, but don't worry, I'm working on a video about Ninja Gaiden 4 and Bayonetta. For the people who may be new here, my main content here is about video games, but sometimes I will take a break from that. When I was in college, the first season of a show named Bridgerton was coming out. The premise seemed pretty simple. A show set in a fictionalized Regency England, where nobles marry other nobles. Women are pressured to marry well, to find a match that puts them in high regard. It's easier to marry for practical reasons, but it doesn't stop anyone from hoping for a love match. At the centre of this show are the Bridgertons, a very wealthy and highly respected family amongst London's social elite. Each season of this show consists of a different Bridgerton navigating the social season and trying to find the perfect partner, all while a scandal sheet called Lady Whistledown reports on their every move. Now, before I go any further, it's really easy to pick on Bridgerton. It's an easy target for historical accuracy, but I'm very much aware that this is a fantasy. It makes it very obvious with its classical renditions of pop songs, the outfits, the diversity. They clarified this with their spin-off, Queen Charlotte. It's fiction inspired by fact. And there is nothing wrong with that. Most of the things that I enjoy are wildly unbelievable anyways. But one of the main things that I look for when I'm consuming a media text is, what can it teach me? Not just facts, but life lessons. Because we all know that stories with settings that are worlds apart from us can still offer very relatable lessons and messages. Unfortunately, Bridgerton is a show that you really have to switch your brain off for to relate to. I understand that most people watch it because they're horny and need escapism, but for the life of me, I cannot understand how people get through it because I can see many things about it that shatter the illusion almost instantly. One of them being, why the hell should I care about these rich people whose biggest problems are finding someone to marry and a little gossip sheet? Now, this was a real concern for the elite back in the Regency era. Their reputation would hinge on these things, but considering that this is a fictionalized version of that period, a romance show spreading to 8 episodes, each being about an hour long, I was hoping that it would be more interesting than how it presents itself in the trailers. But no, it isn't. It is exactly what you'd expect, and sometimes worse. It's insanely predictable. Now, you may ask, well, why are you watching it? Surely you knew what you were signing up for. Well, curiosity for one, but also the diversity, particularly Regé-Jean Page. My grandparents are from Zimbabwe, and it's not that often that I see Zimbabwean actors in lead roles. Even if it was just meant to be colorblind casting, I just liked seeing a part of me represented. But I don't think it was colorblind casting. Chris Van Dusen, the showrunner at the time, said that he wanted the show to explore real topics like gender, class, race, and sexuality. And damn, did that statement turn out to be hollow as fuck, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's begin by talking about Season 1. I'll give a little summary because it's been a while. Season 1 tells the story of Daphne Bridgerton and Simon Bassett, the Duke of Hastings. Daphne is desperately trying to find a suitable husband, while Simon wants nothing to do with the marriage season. But when Daphne finds herself in a potential scandal after knocking out this creepy dude, Simon and Daphne make a deal to form a fake relationship, keeping eyes off of Simon and putting Daphne in the spotlight, allowing her to draw the attention of other suitors. As expected, this fake attachment turns into a real one. As for why they get attached, I don't really understand it. They have some playful banter between them, but it really just seems like being in each other's proximity for a while was enough to make them love each other. I don't have a huge problem with how they get together, to be honest. My main issue is in what happens after. The main thing that held Simon back from marriage in the first place was his relationship with his father. Simon had a stutter as a child, and because of that his father only held hatred for him, and essentially abandoned him, seeing him as unworthy of being the next Duke of Hastings. And so, to spite him, Simon decided that he would never continue his father's lineage, refusing to have children. This becomes a big problem in the show because obviously these two want to be together, but Daphne wants children and Simon doesn't. But you'll see that semantics and communication become an issue here. Daphne is under the impression that Simon physically can't have children, not that he doesn't want them. So Daphne initially decides to abandon her dream of having children and marry Simon anyway. But when Daphne finally learns how sex works, she becomes deeply upset, thinking that Simon has lied to her. So how does she respond to this? Well, she rapes him. She forces him to finish inside her. What the fuck? And what makes it worse is that the episodes after this just end up framing Simon as the villain for this. It's an issue that would have been solved if they had just communicated properly, or if Daphne could have just respected his choice to not want children like a normal person, but no. They essentially spend the rest of the season getting mad at each other until they just get forced back together because the show needs a happy ending. It's fucking disgusting. It completely ruined the season for me. You violated him and you're mad. Really? You're a horrible person. Who fucking wrote this garbage, man? Thankfully, the other primary romances aren't as problematic, but they're not that good either. Well, except for season 2. That one's okay. But season 3 and all of the stuff that happens between the main romance scenes is so fucking boring. Everyone is a stereotype. everyone. There's so many boring filler subplots going on at once. The Featherington family, the Mondridge family, Lady Bridgerton and Marcus. All of it feels like a waste of time. It just feels like stuff that if you took it out of the show, it would barely make a difference. And the show feels so formulaic that sometimes I feel like I just watched the same season twice. Think about it. Male lead is introduced, who is a rake, a promiscuous guy, basically.
Such an array of beautiful ladies. Men will be fighting over you.
How is anyone falling for this shit, by the way? Until the lead sees a woman that he likes, so he decides to get his shit together and directs all that horniness onto the woman. And they always get forced into a happy ending, like no matter what. And in season 3 and 4, it just feels really rushed. And they really tried to play the repetition off like it's funny.
I am charting a more venturesome course.
You're a rake.
Haha, classic Bridgerton. No man, it's fucking boring. Like Christ, this is the same studio that brought us Grey's Anatomy, right? I'm not gonna act like Grey's Anatomy is some masterpiece in comparison, but at least it kept you on your toes. Majority of the episodes are just doctors having sex in every crevice of the hospital. But then sometimes...
Previously on Grey's Anatomy.
Lady Danbury, the one character that I did like, that has such a presence in season 1.
I made myself frightening. I sharpened my wit, my wardrobe, and my eye, and I made myself the most terrifying creature in any room I entered.
Has now become just as forgettable as majority of the side characters because they keep placing her in the most boring conflicts ever. I really enjoyed her story in the spin-off though. Being promised to a man at the age of 3, being trained to like what he likes, and being violated for years until the asshole finally dropped dead.
I spent my life breathing someone else's air.
She never really experienced love in the fantastical ways that the show so often depicts, and seeing that was a welcome change for me. But, God, I don't know what's going on in this new season. I know it isn't over, but you can't just copy Cinderella like that. You know, maybe that's why they started releasing the show in 2 parts. Maybe they realized that the show was so fucking boring that no one will stick around if they just release it all at once. I'm sorry, that was really rude even for me. I have to say though that the overall aesthetic is just really strange. Now again, I know it's a fantasy, it's their take on the Regency era and it's supposed to be bright and vibrant, I'm very, very aware. But all I see when I look at this show is just a bunch of models playing dress up, because it doesn't really go for anything that unique other than looking colourful in terms of both clothing and cinematography. It really just gives off shot in 4K, ultra high definition, but there's no real effort to make it look dated? At first I thought, oh well, maybe it can't be helped with modern cameras, but no. Sinners came out last year and it does an amazing job at immersing you in its time with just its lighting alone. Bridgerton feels like a flashbang in comparison. I know it's a fantasy, I know it's their take on the Regency era, it's supposed to be bright and vibrant, I know. It just feels very oversaturated and very modern. It's a lot more noticeable in season 3 onwards though, like seriously, just take this picture and show it to someone who has never watched Bridgerton, they're not gonna say it's from the 1800s. But let's drop this for now. I'll give the show some credit for season 2. I genuinely think that it's the best of all the seasons and it's indisputable. Well, by the best I mean the best for Bridgerton standards. The bar is already very low, and I'd be lying if I said that it isn't predictable, because it still is. It's a classic enemies to lovers story, but I feel like it's the best for Bridgerton's setting and the story that it's trying to tell. Lady Whistledown's scandal sheet has always had a big presence in the show due to how important Reputation is, and while I feel like it isn't as much of an opposing force as the show makes it out to be, it works so well with season 2 because of the nature of the new character's problems. Season 2 puts the focus on Anthony Bridgerton and introduces us to the Sharmas, Lady Sharma and her daughters Kate and Edwina Sharma, and they come to London basically having already been burned by society's standards. Lady Sharma had previously made a decision to marry for love, rejecting her parents' choice for her and marrying a clerk instead, someone of lower standing who already had a daughter, Kate. In the world of Bridgerton, this is like the equivalent of murder for them, and with Anthony's whole backstory of being forced to step up, to take responsibility, to become the man of the family from such a young age and marry out of obligation, his desires clashing with the idea of duty that's been instilled in him for so long. It feels like a great representation of the idea of love conquering all in this world, what society wants versus what the heart wants. To be fair, season 4 is obviously going for this too, but I just feel like there was a lot more chemistry between the couple in season 2 compared to how 4 is currently going. He sees Sophie once in a mask, somehow falls in love with her from their first meeting and becomes obsessed, and then somehow can't figure out that the woman he's obsessed with is standing right in front of him.
You are perhaps the most intriguing person I've ever met.
But let's not forget where this idea of love conquers all initially came from in the show. Remember what the showrunner said about wanting to explore real topics like race? Well, when I first watched this show, I thought that race didn't really have any meaning in this world. It's never mentioned until season 1 episode 4. Just as Simon is preparing to leave London, Lady Danbury lectures him on taking things for granted, love specifically, and essentially says that it was the power of love that allowed their society, a society that was once divided by race, to unite again.
We were two separate societies, divided by color, until a king fell in love with one of us. Love conquers all.
I believe that remains to be seen.
Indeed, Simon, it really does. Because at this point in the show, this is like a jump scare. I shouldn't have to say this, but racism doesn't just disappear like that. I understand that they're referring to the marriage of King George and Queen Charlotte in the show, and if you watch the spin-off about them, you see that yes, racism was a very big problem back then, and that their marriage was in fact the start of change for people of colour, but even so, the spin-off and that episode are the only times where I've ever seen racism discussed or shown in Bridgerton. It feels so weird for them to just pepper it into one episode and a spin-off and then just basically forget about it, which makes it feel more like a backdrop and an afterthought in Bridgerton, rather than something that they actually wanted to explore. The moment I heard that line, everything changed. Because when they talk about a real issue that they clearly don't know how to handle, I started thinking about what could have been, like with the sexism. They emphasize it with some overdone scenarios like the corset thing, which is inaccurate, there would always be something underneath the corset, but I get it, it reinforces how suffocating and restrictive things are for women in this time period. However, I feel like the show would have benefited from some historical accuracy, like how it was inappropriate for women to show their chest and even their arms in this period. Just little details like that that could have supported its message even more and could have been a bit more educational about the time period. Even for the spin-off show, it does actually show the racism this time through dirty looks, gossiping, the Dowager Princess's treatment of Charlotte, and the insistence of the Queen's portrait being lighter. But again, they could have shown some extra things, like maybe the staff not knowing how to properly deal with Charlotte's afro hair, maybe how it affects other races and not just black people. I don't know. The moment you start using like 1% of your brain, it just doesn't sit well.
This show has a very diverse cast, but when I say cast, I mostly mean the extras.
The showrunners cast a black man in a role where he would be maritally raped by a white woman, and then they would later reward her for it.
Because the whole what if of Bridgerton is like, what if she got married and just flicked away slavery?
These videos are quite old now and are mainly limited to season 1, but I highly recommend watching them. I'll link them in the description. But of all this, the stereotypes, the rushed romances, the aesthetic, the corny flirting, the way they handled the racism, it's so fucking frustrating. My biggest problem with Bridgerton is that it just can't commit to anything. Well, anything good, basically. And anything that it does produce has been done a million times before, both by themselves and by so many other shows and films that do it better. They have all this money, all these resources, only to produce a show that is bland, repetitive, and out of touch. To produce a show that practically eats itself. A show that feels like it's been filtered and sanitized to be more palatable. It's a show that will only stand out to me as being one of the most boring and shallow ways of depicting a fantasy. And its viewers deserve better. So much better. Anyways. Subscribe and I'll see you next time. Oh, and if this video gets popular, if anyone sees this, let me know if season 4 was any good. Resident Evil 9 is about to take over my life, so yeah. Anyway, bye bye!